Greetings, everyone. Nate the Nerdarch here from Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds, hanging out with some nerds.
Ted.
Nerdarch Dave.
And today we ask, are you a good Lich or a bad Lich?
Jump down in the description below where you can find Nerdarchy, the newsletter, game weekly tips, as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy.
So we got a suggestion from TV Timmy.
We did, from the Facebooks and from Twitter, and TV Timmy, if you're familiar with him or not, he runs live play games over on Twitch from time to time.
And he wants to know about good liches.
Sometimes referred to as arch-liches or Balnors?
Balnorns.
Which were the good ones. And
yeah, the elven ones.
Yeah, so I'm not familiar with the 4th edition, if anything came out in 4th edition, but in 3rd edition, they did have a variety, and I'm going to guess that it was probably went back to 2nd edition as well. 5th edition is pretty clear on who becomes a Lich.
Yeah. And,
the bad people.
In Forgotten Realms, the good, naturey, elven liches were called Balnorns, and there was information on them, but it hasn't translated into the later editions that I'm aware of.
Eberron in 3rd edition as well had the concept of the Valinor elves, I believe they're called Valinor elves, that did ancestral worship, and they had the thing called an Undying Court. Now, I may be even mixing up like two different sects of elves here, guys. It's been a while. The one sect definitely had the Undying Court, and they did this ancestry worship, and some of the elves would ascend, and they had like the city of the dead where the Undying kind of lived, and you would go there. And I think some of that, like the more powerful ones of those guys, would fall into that category of good Lich, but they also were much different in the sense that they were created through positive energy, not negative energy.
Right. Now, if you look at Lich in your trusty Monster Manual, page 202 and 203, we get into the heart of the Lich. And in order to remain a Lich, you have to imprison people in your phylactery, and over the course of 24 hours...
obliterate their souls.
The phylactery literally consumes their very being.
Yeah. Only divine intervention is going to get it back.
Right. Basically. So you're not doing this kind of thing and being a good guy. We're going to just kind of speculate on
what it would take to be a good Lich.
What it would take to be a good Lich in 5th edition. If you guys want to read the craziness, you know where it's at. It's crazy.
Yeah, so I would think that one of the ways that you could have storyline a good Lich or a person desiring to become an immortal, a spellcasting undead, I would say you could maybe do a druid or some kind of nature cleric, and they're going to be tying their life to something ancient or old, maybe a mountain range or an ancient tree, like some kind of tree that they grow, like a magical tree that they're investing with their energy, and that's actually going to live off of maybe the earth and maybe the spirit of the land. You're just like cutting a slice off and like putting it in you.
I was envisioning, it's like, all right, similar to how the Lich puts its soul in the phylactery. I was thinking, what if you actually took your soul, ripped it out of your body, and planted it into the ground, and what grows is essentially your phylactery. You'll live as long as that tree does. Kind of like
is it a dryad? And
yeah,
that kind of bond, they're fae that bond to specific things in the world, and like I don't know if it's that way in the Monster Manual. I think I might have seen something, but like if you cut down a dryad's tree, it'll kill them because they're bound to it. They can't live without it.
But as opposed to it being a regular tree, you're creating something that's magical and actually a woodsman that goes out with an axe. It's just a boring axe. It's not going to hurt your tree.
Well, instead of being dealing with a dryad or something, they're dealing with a really high level spellcaster.
Yeah, they go to swing their axe and someone taps them on the shoulder.
Excuse me.
Well, he's good. I don't think he would just do that.
Well, he would let them know before he killed them. He'd give them a choice.
Well, first of all, there is kind of like an example from novels. The Pool of Radiance.
It's going back some ways.
Trilogy. And also, some of you guys may even remember the video game. But I believe the novel came out before the video game.
I think so as well.
There was a trilogy on the Pool of Radiance. I can't remember if I'm mixing things up, but that was also the Spellfire. Like they were all intertwined, and the one character from the Pool of Radiance is the one that actually becomes the wielder of the Spellfire. Blah blah blah. But there was a character I believe introduced. I don't remember his name, but he was actually an undead paladin. So he was a death knight essentially, but a good one. And he wasn't able to rest because he didn't complete what he needed to do, or he failed. His corpse was reanimated, and he became, this good death knight. Which, I mean, like, that's kind of like the warrior version of a lich.
Right.
So in my mind, for a good lich to be in the world, I see either a curse that is bound them to the undeath, kind of like almost like Strahd, or a task undone that a deity or someone has charged them with. Lich out of the Monster Manual, you can't really use any of that because no good being would sacrifice souls.
Right. Well, like the idea behind each of the different undead, as you said, Death Knight is your warrior, Lich is your spellcaster, Vampire is kind of sort of your rogue. So you've got these different,
or in between. He's kind of like he straddles all three.
Well, shoehorning them into different categories, and I'm certain there's people are going to argue with me in the comments. But Lich is most assuredly, they're your spellcaster. And all of those are genuinely evil. So if you say, okay, well, if you want to turn those to the other side, all right, let's make a good one. The concept of this video is we are making a good undead spellcaster.
I kind of feel like candidates from the spellcasting, that it'd be kind of like a little bit of an oxymoron, but the Twilight Druid and the Undying Light Warlock Pact are kind of ones that loathe and hate undeath. Mm-hmm. But, could something cause them to take on undeath in order to eternally try and extinguish it?
It's one of those things that we're skating on that border. Are they being granted some form of immortality, or are we honestly saying, boom, we're putting the stamp on, you're undead, get used to it?
You're undead, get used to it, I think. Right. You're a lich. Essentially, the idea is you're a lich, except for this, in the sense that you probably even have a phylactery, but it doesn't require the same renewal that the evil lich does, because right. It's got to be powered by good somehow. Mm-hmm. and or maybe the deity has chosen to renew your phylactery mm-hmm. however often it has to be done.
Right.
Hey, you get divine intervention once a week as a cleric, right? So maybe that'll work out. You'd be like, please let me live another week. Please, sir, can I have some more?
I always feel like a good lich isn't someone that tries to become a lich.
Yes, circumstance makes it.
Well, I think, like with the example we were talking about earlier, where you plant your soul into the ground to become a tree, like I see that there's definitely ways that you could go about doing it.
At the end of the day, becoming any kind of undead in my mind is unnatural.
Yeah, which just kind of goes against the grain for.
There's definitely druids. A deity out there that you're pissing off. That like he's like going, no, this is the cycle,
right?
And you've disrupted it. He's not going to like what you're doing,
and thus, the people who worship him are you've just turned them into your enemies.
Yeah, they're not going to see a difference between you and the evil soul obliterating lich. Right. You're both abominations in their mind. And could lead to their own type of witch hunt. That's why, and I also feel like, the best kind of good lich is like the incidental good lich, that it kind of happened to them. Mm-hmm. And in previous editions too, like you didn't have to set out to become a lich; it could just happen, right?
You had this. We had the whole I'm going to make this potion that's going to kill me. And it probably involved my friend's heart or something, and
So I feel like in earlier editions, like there was more ways to become a lich or a vampire.
In earlier editions, there may have been, easy ways to go about becoming a lich, and
it's not so much easy as much as explained in different ways.
Right. Well, the point I was getting at, 5th edition really has gone to great lengths to say, look, do what you want, it's your game. So if you want to force someone into being a lich, or you want to, have them go down that road, it's only as hard as you as the DM want it to be.
Oh, you know what? I thought of another cool way to become kind of a lich, but not because sacrificing souls and being evil sorcerer or something like that. If you had like a higher level mage and he well, it's like with a wish or something like that. Like is in a bad situation and used magic to either escape, but it didn't work out. If it wasn't, you have to do it storyline wise, where they either attach themselves to somebody else, or if their like body's obliterated, but they cast a spell that puts them in somebody else's body. So like the person's their phylactery, and maybe they have to do something crazy like eat a whole bunch of food all the time, or like so they're constantly like eating and drinking and stuff to kind of, because they're getting devoured in a sense from this person being attached to them.
That kind of makes me think of Dragonlance and Raceland. The spirit, I think the spirit or soul of Philedeus, I don't know how to say his name. Philedeus?
Let us know.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. But basically, kind of like instructed and followed Raceland around. Like it comes out later that like he kind of like chose him. And that's one of the reasons why Raceland becomes so powerful so fast. But going over what you said, like that makes me think of, well, what about the wizard that actually has his soul like imprisoned or ripped out of his body, and he's able to not overcome the imprisonment, but take over the object in essence.
Yeah.
And that in inadvertently creating a phylactery for themselves. Perhaps like someone say a wizard's soul gets trapped in the gem on a staff of power, a staff of the magi, super supremely powerful magic item, and maybe the magic item itself is actually fuels the phylactery because it is the phylactery.
Yeah.
So like the only way that wizard could be destroyed would be like if like a Richard Brady strike with the staff would take the staff out and the wizard inadvertently as well. But because his spirit is living on in this quasi state, it causes his body to keep going, and essentially becoming a lich. One of the things that TV Timmy asked about was the good lich and animating dead, and this it's kind of like my pet peeve. With I'm going to play a good necromancer or whatever, dude. But like of having to cast speak with dead and get permission. But I really do see, and guys, I know you've argued with me in the past in the comments below, but I actually see animating dead in any form is you're usurping the power of. Or usurping the soul of that creature and keeping it from passing on, even if it's just a remnant. Like even if it's just like skeletons and zombies, in my necromancy world, you've basically barred them from the afterlife by doing it. And their animus is basically imprisoned in those bodies until they can be laid to rest, not just destroyed, but laid to rest properly and consecrated or something along those nature.
Yeah, you need a special culture to be cool with having their dead relatives walking around doing stuff. So it would be like how the strangeness of that Undying Court of Eberron.
Yes.
I mean that's like, okay, I could see that.
Well, then they also had another nation, the Carnathi, that would also reanimate the dead and use them for soldiers.
Oh yeah, like in Dead Shared Servitude.
Yes, yeah.
Undead servitude.
But that nation was also secretly ruled by a vampire. So
yeah. So he's like, hey, I'm one. What's a big deal?
Well, for those that are arguing in the comments, I'm on board that skeletons and zombies are like, it's just animated magic. The greater undead stuff, that's where you're actually holding things back.
Yeah, well, why isn't it just animate object then? Cast on corpses, because essentially that's what it becomes. But in my mind, the fact that you're using necrotic or necromancy magic to do it, that means that's magic of the spirit and death. You have to power it with something, and you're using the power of spirit and death.
Okay.
So, in my mind, granted, like, anybody can run the game however they want. They can do it however they want. But it ultimately always comes down to that. How does necromancy work? That determines on whether or not you can really have a good necromancer in your game.
I agree.
Now, why that's relevant to this conversation is it doesn't really matter if you speak with dead and get permission or not. Like, if you're still a good person, still wouldn't be like, I know I'm going to bar you from the afterlife, but hey, do you mind?
Just for a little bit, right?
Yeah.
The afterlife's forever.
Yeah, it's forever now. You just get to go, Brains.
So it would beg the question that if you had a goodly undead spellcaster, what type of magics would they have access to? Would they be using primarily necromancy, or would they be falling into other schools of magic?
Well, I would see them using whatever they used in life, really.
Yeah.
And that would be it. And that being said, it is a tool, and there are ways to use the school of necromancy without being completely evil. Mm-hmm. But when you get more specifically into the animate and create undead spells, I feel like you're crossing a line. And again, it comes down to how do you view necromancy in your world, and what are undead in your world. If they literally are just puppets, and they're meat puppets that they're just animated by the magic, then yeah, it doesn't matter. I feel like this is often flavored by how much you like necromancy, right? So, I feel like people go to great ends to explain how necromancers can be good.
It's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with it.
Right.
Just sign here.
Yeah, like there's the white, gray, and black necromancy. So you could use necromancy in a good way, but you would definitely pick and choose what your spell selection was. And in my opinion, you're just going to avoid the really, really ugly stuff.
Mm-hmm. If you want minions, summon creatures, or you have eternity, make some allies.
Well, yeah, you could do it that way.
Yeah, so there's ways of having those servants, of having the people around you not be like families that come and go and die and all that kind of stuff. Just like mechanical people, you can summon creatures, trained things. So you have the time.
The other thing too is if it's more of if it's a cultural thing, or a divine thing where your lichdom is brought about, the act of sacrifice could be another way of powering your phylactery as well. The people you're there to serve or protect, as long as they believe in you, maybe it could be like a ritual that they conduct every year, where instead of one person feeding you their soul, the community collectively gives you a little piece.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah, and you could definitely do like adventures around that, like someone tries to disrupt that, someone tries to soak dissent, someone steals the phylactery, and you're getting towards the end. He's getting towards the end, and they have to get it back in order to conduct a ritual.
That could be as simple as something like the phylactery's a chalice, and everybody like puts in blood or something like that.
Right, one drop of blood from everyone that lives in this particular town, village, community, convent, whatever it is.
Monastery, yeah.
So what do you guys think? How do you handle good undead in your world? Do you allow it? Is it possible? But let us know in the comments below. While you're at it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Check us out on nerdarchy.com.
You also check out us on Facebook.
So until next time, stay nerdy.